Okay, so they haven't paid their invoice, and you've written a review, you've taken a survey, you've done those things, and you're still not getting the results. It's looking kind of bad. You can send some collection demand letters to your delinquent accounts. So before you start a costly recovery effort, try sending delinquent customers demand letters to collect on past due invoices. There are some best practices to follow when sending out some delinquent notices. Don't wait. Start communicating. Keep the communications going. A reminder before the due date is always a good practice. So, in some cases, you might send a nice reminder email that, hey, your invoice is due in the next 5 days, and then be persistent after that. You always want to keep it short. Keep it short, keep it typed. Don't do a handwritten letter or anything like that. And you generally want to include your company's letterhead. Include the invoices with the payment options, specific dates, and payment methods. Include your contact information, and if you're sending this through mail, a stamped return envelope. Keep it professional and don't use harsh language. Sometimes we're driven by emotions, but this is not the time for it. So you just want to make sure it's professional, and do not use any language that would be deemed unprofessional. Phone calls and emails are okay as long as you're not harassing them. So give them a call first. If there's some concerns, you might be surprised to find out sometimes there's a good legit reason. Life happens, and you don't want to sound insensitive to the work-life balance. So sometimes a telephone call is going to serve you well. Avoid the temptation of texting or messaging. This is not the time to send a text message, okay? Once you do start sending letters, send letters about every 2 weeks apart, about 14 days apart at a consistent rate. You might want to send 2 to 3 letters out. If you don't get a response, then it might be time to hire a professional. So you might want to hire a collection agency. A collection agency is a third-party entity that represents the creditor in a default. So collection agencies are usually licensed in the state of the debtor and carry insurance and are bonded. Individual bill collectors may also require additional licensing. So depending on what state you're in. And the purpose of a collection agency is to mitigate settlement of bad debts. So oftentimes when communications have broken down and the efforts to collect on a debt stagnates, a collection agency can get faster results and avoid additional legal action. So, the collection agency is the step you take before you hire an attorney. If you have to take them to court and get a judgment, okay. But a collection agency might mitigate that for less, and it's a lot less complicated. Many times you just forward, all the information you have, the personal guarantee, the contract, the credit application, the invoice, all your email communications, any checks, bad checks that you have, and any notes that you might have. So you send that all over to a collection agency, and they just take it from there. A good collection agency will locate the debtor. So sometimes a debtor will skip out and leave no forwarding contact information. A collection agency employs skip tracers. So a skip tracer is an investigator skilled in locating people who don't want to be found. Me personally, I'm a trained skip tracer, and I can find people pretty readily. You'd be surprised what rocks folks can hide under. There are many tricks to the trade, and a good skip tracer will use every legal trick in the book to reconnect to the debtor. And once that debtor is located, negotiations can begin. So a debt collector is going to validate the debt with and establish the intent with the debtor. And once you get to collections, the person who owns the money is called the debtor. And that's just the term they use. The collector will gather information and verify credit application and personal guarantee documents. The proof of the debt will be communicated to the debtor, and demands will be made for payment. This process is very effective in collecting past due invoices, and just let it be known that an effective bill collector, it's an art and a science, okay, what these bill collectors do. I have many, many, many years of collections, and it's an art to it, and there's a bit of a science to it. You just have to leave them to their devices and let them do their job, and you'll find that a lot of times they're going to be able to collect, not all the time, But a lot of the times they're going to be able to collect. In a lot of cases, the debtor may have some sort of dispute or grievance. At this time in the negotiation, generally the collector will offer a settlement with some terms that both parties can agree to. Sometimes there are things. So sometimes things go south between the creditor and the borrower, where they don't feel like they can communicate anymore, and sometimes the bill collector mitigates and fosters that communication and arrives to a settlement arrangement. Collection agencies are going to charge you a fee for their service. Usually it's about 25% and going up from there. A 35% fee is not uncommon, and they can go as high as 50% for some of the older debts. Take home there is that the older the debt gets, the less likely it's going to pay, and the more they're going to charge you. More reason why you should act fast. Bill collectors like invoices less than 45 days old. Okay, that's what they want. 60 days old is okay, but when things start getting older and older, they're going to charge you more, and it takes more effort, and it's less likely to pay. So keep that in mind. So your collection agency is going to document final arrangements and finalize all communications. Now, what you do after that point is really up to you. You may decide not to do business with them anymore. Some businesses, once they've cleared up the debt, we can start doing business again. And lesson learned: you might not extend as much credit. So it just depends. So when's the right time to get the bill collector? Once you've exhausted all your efforts to collect a past due invoice, it's time to get the bill collector going. The trick is not to hesitate. Just think, you've already spent a lot of your valuable time trying to collect, and if you're following the process, your chances of collecting are not going to improve much past that point. It's time to get a professional. So, I mean, if you've gone through and you've taken the credit application, you've verified everything, you've got the personal guarantee, you've validated all their references. If you've done all that, and then you've sent them delinquency notices, you've kept the communication open, you have gone out here and you have done social media work, you've given them reviews, you've taken surveys that are open source surveys, you've done all of this, chances are you've done everything you possibly can to hold them accountable. So that is when you get your bill collector involved. So how do you select a collection agency? Look, I'm going to make this real short for you. They're all following the same rules. But find someone that you can talk to, that gets results, and keeps open communication with you. It doesn't charge you too much. Aside from that, they might give you some spiel about how they got some sort of special something going on, but I tell you, they don't. They're all about the same. They're all following the same laws, and they all have the same rules. What's most important is that you have a good rapport with your collection agency, and if done right, they can actually seem just like an extension of your existing company, an extension of your accounts receivables department. They just work really well with you. Some of these niceties are the things that you're going to be looking for.